Good morning and welcome. My name is Philippe Leroux. I'm the CEO for IFC, the International Finance Corporation, which is part of the World Bank Group that works with the private sector. Thanks again to all of you here in the atrium today, but also those that are watching through the Bank Live for joining us today. I'd like to give a special welcome to the ministers in the audience, to the president of the World Bank Group and my boss, Jim Kim, and to our special guest, Ivanka Trump, advisor to the US President. Welcome all, and thank you all for what you have done. Today's event, called Taking Women-Owned Business in Developing Countries to the Next Level, will have two parts. The first will include short stories from three outstanding women entrepreneurs, and the second part will be a panel discussion with Ivanka Trump, Reem Al-Hashimi, the Minister of State for International Cooperation in the United Arab Emirates, Stephen Puig, CEO of Banco BHD León in the Dominican Republic, and Jim, who will also be the moderator. Let me get right to the point. Women's empowerment is smart economics. No one, no country, no economy, no business wins unless both women and men participate in the economy. But for too many reasons, this doesn't happen. One of the greatest barriers for women entrepreneurs is lack of access to finance. According to the statistics that we have, 70% of women-owned companies do not have access to finance. 70%. So in addition to capital, one of the biggest hurdles is the unconscious and conscious bias against women-owned businesses. We found, throughout training with commercial bank staff and fund managers, that no matter what country you are in, many investors wrongly believe that women-owned businesses are a higher risk. Our experience in IFC is exactly the opposite. Let me repeat, it's exactly the opposite. In fact, as a group, women who run businesses pay back their loan at a higher rate than men. So for me, as CEO for IFC, women-owned business is good business. Talking about IFC, we have spent years financing SME loans in women-owned businesses. We have also issued social bonds targeting gender inequality in finance. And we will use this experience to help shape and deliver the just launched Women Entrepreneur Finance Initiative. Shorthand is WEFI. And this fund will improve access to capital, provide technical assistance, and invest in other projects and programs that support women and women-led SMEs. With programs like this, we expect to see many more women around the world succeeding in business and contributing to their families and their country's economic success. Today, we are very lucky to have three of such entrepreneurs, and they're here to share their stories. One of them is Noor Al-Hassan, whom I met a few months ago at the World Economic Forum in Jordan by the Dead Sea. And the forum and IFC brought 100 top founders of startups in the MENA region, Middle East region, to attend the forum. And Noor was one of those entrepreneurs. She founded the translation services company Tarjama in 2008 in Amman, and later moved to Dubai. Believe me, you will be impressed by her story. In fact, we are so impressed with her that we are now a client of her. She's now translating all of our communication material for our new Creating Market campaign. So thank you. We'll discuss everything. A second entrepreneur is Win Tint, whom I also met exactly a year ago in Rangoon, in Myanmar. Win has expanded her family supermarket chain called City Mart throughout Myanmar. And IFC, we have invested $25 million in the business. Win story shows the power of entrepreneur to create markets, which is the heart of our new strategy, and this in fragile and conflict-affected countries. And we have a third entrepreneur here today. It's Anta Babacar Ngom of Senegal, who is the CEO of a Senegal leading poultry production business, and also IFC advisor client, because in IFC we do advisory and finance. So on the advisory, we were very lucky to work with Antar and her company. So Antar's stories also is full of surprises, you'll see, but I will not spoil them for you. She will, like Noor and Win, they are fearless, they are persistent, and they are very creative. So we at IFC, and together with colleagues at the World Bank, we are determined to open more opportunities for women in business. When women have opportunities, everybody wins. Our three entrepreneurs now will give what we call lightning talks, just for minutes. And the first one will be Noor, followed by Win and Anta. Please join me in welcoming these extremely impressive entrepreneurs.
I'm going to go first.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Noor El-Hassan. I'm the founder and CEO of Tarjama. Tarjama means translation in English. And Tarjama is a linguistic solution company based out of Jordan in the UAE, hiring the largest number of female translators and linguists. So I'm Jordanian father, Syrian mother, born, raised in Amman. And I graduated with a law degree from Jordan. In 2008, actually, I started the business. I always knew I had no desire to join family business. My father has a furniture business back home. In 2008, I joined an international organization in Amman, and the need for translating documents was huge. Unfortunately, it was very difficult to find the right talent and be able to meet deadlines, good quality of translation. So I engaged with few freelancers, female freelancers that were working from home with us. And I asked them, what's the issue? And they said, we want to work, but unfortunately, we have some cultural barriers, traditional barriers. We're mothers raising kids. We can't leave home. So I said, why don't we just bring work home to you? And then I resigned from my job. I created the company, and I started focusing on building a network of females that work from home. I started with 2 females only, and I told them, listen, I'm just going to go out, get the business, and I'll pay you when the clients pay me. And they said, sure, we're going to take it. And then the business started scaling up. I built a huge network of fantastic women with great quality. The need now was access to a bigger market. So I made the move to the UAE in 2011. where I started to expanding my business in a much bigger scale in the GCC and abroad. And these are a few of our females working from home. Fantastic team, actually. They've been with us since the start of the company. Dubai was a great place for me to start and scale my business, but it was challenging. It was a new place for me, different market. I had to meet a lot of clients, convince always of the whole model. Like, how do you trust a company that just hires women work from home? How can you make sure that the quality is up to standards? How do you make sure that our documents are secure? And how do you do it? So it took us a lot of time to gain that trust. In December 2014 was a huge change, a game-changing year for our company. I remember I do a lot of beach walks in Dubai. And this is the beach that I usually do my sunset beach walks. One day I was talking to my mentor and I said, I don't know what Tarjama is. Like, I'm building a translation company, but we're doing a lot of skill empowerment for women, skill training. We focus on content, we focus on translation. So who are we? Are we a company, a social enterprise? And he said, what do you mean, who are you? You're building the largest network of freelancers and full-time females who are providing top quality content and translation. Who doesn't need content today? Who doesn't need to translate their messages? So focus on that and build on it. And that night, I went back home and I called our CEO and I said, listen, I know what Tarjama is going to be. This is our focus. This is our mission. Let's build it. And today, actually, Tarjama grew from being a small agency with 2 employees to a company that has 100 full-time females. This photo shows that we hire men too. It's not only women, but we're 90% females. We are in 8 countries, and we have over 300 freelancers across the region. And we just launched our first editorial marketplace to connect content writers, editors to employers. And the platform is 3 months old and has 2,000 active freelancers already. And this is my story that I want to share with you. And the last thing I want to say is when you really know your mission, you offer opportunity. And Tarjama is all about offering opportunity. And I would like to thank IFC and World Bank for this opportunity, because you gave me a chance to share my story and talk about my team, which is a great team, and I thank them every day for where we are today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Noah. Good morning. My name is Wu Wintin. I'm from Myanmar. I'm the only daughter of 4 children, and we live in a country that was isolated from the war for more than 5 decades. My parents were in the wholesale business when we had the socialist government who dislikes the businesses in 70s and 80s. And later in 1988, we had the dramatic political transition happen in the country, and military seized power. After they seized power, they shut down all the colleges and universities in the country. And I graduated from my high school in 1992, and till that time, the universities were closed. So many of us, our hopes vanished. Lucky for me, that became my first opportunity. I tell you why. My parents sent me to Singapore to live with an aunt. On my first day in Singapore, my aunt told me that I needed new clothes, and she took me to a department store. The experience overwhelmed me because that was my first time seeing so many choices for different products. And I couldn't even decide what to choose. But later on, I slowly get used to the ideas of choices and retail stores. And I saw an opportunity in supermarkets. It is liberating. I told myself, why not? Myanmar had no supermarkets, and that would be a good idea. So I went back home after 3 years of schooling in Singapore. Back in Myanmar, my parents and relatives raised funds to open our first small supermarket. That was the first few in the country. There were lots of obstacles. For example, there were very little value-added products to be sold post-socialist era, and we had to sell mainly imported products. Those were very expensive. So that made me reach out to local businesses to persuade them to help to package the products so that we could sell them in the stores. Customers were also new to the supermarket culture, and they came more because of their curiosity, and they buy very little. But bit by bit, they saw the benefits. And slowly, after 2 years, we opened our second stores, and we continue with expansions. But the business was hurt by a series of crises. There was trade sanction because of lack of political freedom. There was lacking of financing. There were man-made and natural disasters, banking crisis, import bans. There were times we thought we could not continue, but we know giving up hope and possibility of freedom through choices would be irresponsible. So we persevered. We worked hard, we rallied people, and we reinvested profits into new store so that we can be like chain store model that I saw in Singapore. And we started building hyper stores and started venturing out into different retail formats as well as retail property development. Ladies and gentlemen, with the opportunity that I got in Singapore, seeing what are the possibilities out there, today I'm the founder and CEO of a company which operates 200 retail stores across the country, offering different choices, employing 9,000 people, of which 65% are female, and they are trained for skills and career in retail. With opportunities, we can build a business that can support and brings better life for people, even in a country that was close to the war. Thank you very much.
Well done. Thank you, Win-Win. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anta Babakar. I am 33 years old, mother of 2 cool boys, CEO of a company called Sedima, a poultry company in Senegal. I was born and raised in a village called Malika, 40 kilometers away from the city, with no water, no electricity. It is in that village that my father, in 1976, with an investment of $120, he purchased 140 chicks, started his poultry company. We were raised in very poor conditions, but they took the little they had and invested in my education. I was raised and I grew up not playing with dolls or female friends in the neighborhood, but played with chicks and my 2 older brothers. I did well in school because I had to wake up every day at 4 a.m. to go to the city and get that education. So I fought really hard to even get a government scholarship. And with the help of my father, I was able to travel the world. I went to France, came to Canada, got my master's degrees, got my MBA, and even a great job in Paris. I was living a good life, good job in a beautiful city, but I was not happy. So one day, walking around the Champs-Élysées, I decided to call my father and say, "Dad, I want to come home." He was very surprised, he was very shocked, he did not understand why, but he agreed. Little did I know at that time that he had a surprise of his own waiting for me. I got back to the company with my high heels, of course, French influence, expecting an office job. My dad said, "Baby girl, now we have to start from the bottom." For a year and a half, he sent me back to the farms, working, living, sleeping with the farmers, learning my job, learning how to grow chicken. And it's at that time that I knew what I wanted to do. I actually fell in love and found my passion into that business that my father founded. A year and a half later, finally, I was able to get an office job as a responsible of strategy and development. The whole vision started there. I was able to start dreaming big. What will we do and make of this company in the next 10 years, 20 years, 40 years? I've always dreamed of companies living throughout generations in Senegal. What is the role of the second and third generation? That vision starting, the hope starting, one time again, he, my father, called me back into his office. Another surprise for me, for a private meeting, he said, "Anta, I've been watching you. I've been watching what you do throughout the years, and I think it's about time. I want to pass over the company to you. Are you ready?" I was born ready. But I was so scared. I felt so lonely. And at that time, I started looking around for a female mentor in my field, a female entrepreneur in the agribusiness sector in Senegal. I did not find any. And I understood that I had to surround myself. So the first thing we did is went abroad, traveled the world to see whatever that is best out there. Called IFC people, Ivan, called Highline companies everywhere, and surrounded myself with the best technical helps we could get. But the most important part is surrounded myself with a female team who understood, shared the vision, and wanted to live the adventure with us. And it's in that regard that we have somebody like Yassine, who's 27 years old. She's the chief production of a chicken feed production of 1,000 tons per day. We have somebody like Mariam, who's the chief production of a 4,000 bird processing plant, the biggest processing plant in that region. We have someone else like Anta Sow, who's the project coordinator of all the projects we have in the sub-region, because the vision we have today is not just Senegal. We just recently launched Bamako. We're going to Central Africa. So it is that team that has helped us today to become what we are, as in a company that's employing directly 780 people, indirectly 40,000 people, and is an $80 million worth company. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's go.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's very, very inspiring. Anta, Noor, and Win-Win have shown what happens when women, against tremendous odds, start businesses and get the support they need. So we're so thrilled today to have launched WeFi. The official launch was earlier this week, and I am excited that we now have a chance to help other women have stories just like this. Now, let me just go around. We have a great panel, and I want to introduce them and invite them to come and take their seats. The first Ivanka Trump, Senior Advisor to the President of the United States, and herself a successful entrepreneur. In her role, she focuses on the education and economic empowerment of women and their families. Prior to this, she oversaw development and acquisitions at the Trump Organization, and together with her brothers, Ivanka founded Trump Hotels in Sion. She's an entrepreneur, but most important for us, she's been the driving force behind the Women's Entrepreneurship Financing Initiative and why we're here today. Ivanka? Next, Her Excellency Reem bint Ibrahim Al Hashimi is the recently appointed Minister of State for International Cooperation for the United Arab Emirates. She joined the federal government in 2008 as Minister of State and has worked on the UAE's bid to host the World Expo 2020 in Dubai. Your Excellency. Stephen Puig is CEO of Banco BHD Leon in the Dominican Republic. He also serves as president of AFI BHD and is a board member of BHD International Bank of Panama. Prior to joining Banco BHD Leon, Stephen was vice president for the private sector at the Inter-American Development Bank. Stephen? All right, thanks everybody. So just a very straightforward question. Why do you think, and this is for everybody, why do you think it's important to take women entrepreneurs to the next level? You know, we've done so much through conditional cash transfers, through microenterprise lending, and a lot of informal businesses have been set up, but our focus is really to take women to the next level, to levels that we've seen with the entrepreneurs. Ivanka, what's your vision for this initiative, and why is it so important to take them to the next level?
Well, first of all, thank you, President Kim. Thank you for having us here, and thank you to these amazing entrepreneurs whose stories we heard, who so well articulate why it's so important. It's more than important, it's critical as we think about sustained, inclusive, global economic growth. So fully unleashing the power of women in our economy will create tremendous value, but also bring much needed peace, stability, and prosperity to so many regions. So it is interesting when you ask why. And for all the talk about women's economic empowerment, one of the questions I had when we first met back in April is what was being done outside of microfinance, because there's been a tremendous amount of great work that's been happening in the microfinance space to help male and female entrepreneurs get their start. But beyond that, and to enable small businesses, even very small businesses, to scale and to realize their full potential, oftentimes there was no liquidity, especially in the developing world where the credit gap is estimated for women at over $300 billion annually. So access to capital was an enormous challenge. So we started talking about how we could change that and how we could create something truly revolutionary that would think about small and middle-sized female entrepreneurs in the developing world, truly empower them. And when you empower women, as we heard from the presentations, women invest in other women and employ other women and create a tremendous ecosystem of opportunity within their communities. They say that women invest 90 cents on the dollar back into their family, their family's education, their family's health, and their community at large. So investing in women is great business. We've seen this time and time again, and we're looking to really eliminate barriers to access to capital, to access to mentors, and to access to networks. And through WeFi, the Women's Entrepreneur Finance Initiative, which was announced at the G20 with 12 other founding country partners, we're excited to take a major step in doing just that.
And now we're up to 15, I think, 15 different founding members. $350 million that was raised in about 5 months, which is very fast, even for us. Your Excellency, why is it important to take women entrepreneurs to the next level?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to be on this panel and also to meet these incredible women entrepreneurs who've been serious game changers. I think that, at least for us in the United Arab Emirates, it's always been very clear that to be able to continue an agenda of prosperity and development, women and girls have to be at the center of that, at the core of that, at the heart of it. And you can't imagine a society that grows if you don't actually operationalize half the population of that society. But women entrepreneurs, as Ivanka mentioned, also have a very strong commitment back into their families. And so in the work that we do in international cooperation in, for example, Sub-Saharan Africa, we've seen primarily that if you provide opportunities for women farmers, for example, you see that go back into the community, into the schools, into their very own ecosystem. There is no doubt that as we look at increasing opportunities for growth, unless women design those programs, are recipient of those programs, are at the core of those programs, and are decision makers for that, we are not going to be able to completely optimize and leverage as we want. Now, that's not to say that our fellow male counterparts shouldn't be partners. In fact, we wouldn't be able to do it without them as fully fledged partners. But I note the need to have women as actors here because they also have very distinct commitments, in some places of the world obligations, and a particular context that is easier for women to understand. Noor talked about working moms who need to be home with their kids but still want to contribute to society. A fellow male counterpart may not recognize that need and therefore not recognize that opportunity as well. So and as we look at the SDGs and as we look at how do we increase opportunities for prosperity, how do we unlock these opportunities, how do we unleash new and growing sectors, we have to do that around empowering and strengthening women. And I think it gets a little bit contagious too, sure. Because when they see the success of one, they get impacted, influenced, excited, and also inspired by others.
Stephen, you have really worked in this area quite a bit in making sure that women have access to capital. But why is it important here to take things to the next level for women?
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Kim, for the invitation to be here and also for the sponsors of the WIFI initiative, which I think is going to be fantastic. I think it's important for two reasons. One, which Philippe outlined at the beginning of this session, which is economic impact. A few years ago, Goldman Sachs did a study showing just how much economies could grow if women were equally employed as men. And for the United States, it was 9%. For European countries, it was around 13%. And the story was the same for other regions of the world as well. But more than economic impact, it's also about social impact, as Ivanka was mentioning. I was floored a couple of weeks ago. Our institution was invited to participate in a session that took place yesterday in the Dominican Republic, which was hosted by the network of microfinance entities there. And as Ivanka pointed out, a lot of work has been done in microfinance. And quite frankly, for us, microfinance entities were an inspiration when we began our program. Yet they were inviting us to be on a panel to talk about developing niches for finance for microfinance institutions. And the first niche was with millennials. And the second niche, I was really surprised, was banking for women. And here, all of these institutions had at least half of their clients that were women. And after thinking about it, what I realized is that they had approached women strictly as entrepreneurs, but not on a holistic basis as heads of households. And as Ivanka was mentioning, the impact in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of the general well-being of themselves, their partners, their kids, their parents, their partners' parents, is tremendous. So by banking on women, we're not just fomenting economic impact, but also fomenting impact on all the people that surround the women that get gainfully employed.
You know, we heard from Anta that at one point she was racing around looking for mentors, looking for advice. And one of the things that we had talked about in putting this together is to put together a mentorship network that you promised that you'd participate in. How important is mentorship? Who are your mentors, and how can we make sure that that everyone who benefits actually gets the mentorship that they need?
Mentorship is critical. And in traveling around the world, whether it's in communities in the United States or to far-flung destinations, I hear it time and time again that mentorship arguably is more valued and more important than even access to capital. So women oftentimes, they gain early stage capital through friends and families and have much less access. But that mentorship is equally valuable to them as they think about scaling. So when we first started talking about WeFi, we asked ourselves, well, what are the critical components to success and where are the unique barriers? So the access to capital barriers, the access to network, and in part because there are less mentors, there are less women in the entrepreneurship ecosystem, there are less trading partners and natural trading partners. Women are less inclined to do business across borders for cultural reasons, sometimes for legal reasons. So how do we create network opportunities for women? How do we think about the legal restrictions? In many countries around the world, there are very strong prohibitions to female entrepreneurship around land inheritance, requiring permission to travel, that need to be considered in the context of WeFi's work as we think about where, and as the World Bank Group thinks about where they're going to lend that capital and how they can change the legal framework for success. But I do think this mentorship part is critical. And one of the things that we're able to uniquely think about, consider, and do, and I'm so glad that you have such a passion for, is really leveraging the benefits of technology to create a marketplace for peer-to-peer advice. So I, on a personal level, am going to spend a lot of time offering any value that I can as a mentor to people and also a mentee, because I'm sure I'll learn a lot in return. But I think in addition to getting people of higher profile on the platform, I think creating an opportunity for people in similar businesses at similar stages to be able to talk to their peers around the globe through a digital interface is a very, very exciting opportunity and something that I can't wait to see you build out and look forward to be an active participant in.
Well, what Ivanka mentioned is really important, and this was among the discussions we had, that this is the first platform that's going to provide financing and mentorship directly to women who are working in the private sector, but we also have a public sector wing. In other words, all the limitations and restrictions, laws that are in place that Ivanka just mentioned, we have to get at those as well. So there'll be a big chunk of WeFi that focuses on governments to change their laws so that it's easier for women to do all the things that Ivanka talked about. Now, Your Excellency, I've been to Dubai and I've seen that there's a really great ecosystem for entrepreneurs and also for women who own their businesses. To what extent, and Dubai is constantly thinking about how to improve it, to what extent do you think what happened in Dubai can be taken to other parts of the world?
One of the main objectives of our own development agenda in the Emirates is to try to grow the pie bigger. And the best way to do that, I believe, is to demonstrate that culture, tradition, modernity does not come in conflict when you try to open up your markets and provide especially a digital space. There is a definite commitment from the leadership and from the government to constantly reinvent yourself so that you're constantly aware of what the new trends are. And there's also a very limited appetite for complacency. So what worked 5 years ago might not actually be working in the next 5 years. And if you're not aware of how market trends are changing, then you're going to fall behind. So I believe that it's really important for good legislation, a conducive environment for investment, mentorship, financing for small, medium-sized enterprises, and then a constant sense, almost a finger on the pulse on what's happening around, so that you're consistently and continuously ahead of the game and pushing yourself to be not relevant, but to be more adaptable to how things develop. The agility and adaptability are what make not only countries and cities, but also companies continue to thrive and grow.
Stephen, you've done so much in moving finance to women entrepreneurs, but there aren't many commercial banks doing it. Why do you think there's been so few? And what have you done to really convince your partners, the other people you work with, that this is an important focus?
I think that financing women in commercial banks is the invisible elephant in the room, in the sense that women tend to be a large percentage of our customers. In our case, before we embarked on our program, 42% of our customers were women. And just as in the example that I mentioned beforehand, for microfinance entities, it tends to be 50% or more in our region. Yet, banks don't necessarily focus on this. So it's a great question. Why does that happen? I think it's a matter of, first, focus and recognizing that opportunity. Secondly, building a business case around this. And I have to say that to build a business case, it's great to work with allies, as one of the entrepreneurs was highlighting earlier. In our case, we allied ourselves with the IFC to help develop this business case, to do the research that was required, to figure out what the opportunity might actually be. Our business case was predicated on getting an internal rate of return of over 30%, which is fantastic anywhere in the world. And we've actually been realizing that over the last 2 or 3 years. And then in addition to that, you need to get support from the top. In our case, it wasn't just myself. Our president was very keen to embark on this, as was our board when we presented this opportunity. And then in addition to that, it's a matter of getting good mentors. We were mentored by BLC, a bank in Lebanon, which has a program that's been developed for a number of years. It was also a bank which received IFC assistance in terms of developing its own program. And then lastly, I think it's a matter of following up on a consistent basis in terms of what you're actually doing. We have a management meeting every month where we see how we're doing vis-a-vis our goals that we set out for ourselves in terms of our program. In the case of BLC, their CFO leads this, so I know she follows up on this in terms of results on a monthly basis as well.
And if I might just add on to that, it is amazing when you think about the fact that only 10% of women say that they had the access to the capital they needed to start their businesses. So it's incredibly small. Yet just within entrepreneurship, if you could close the gender gap in entrepreneurship, that would lead, by a recent estimation that was published in the last couple of months, they say that would lead to 2% GDP growth globally. Wow. So think about that, closing that gender entrepreneurship gap and the impact of 2% global GDP growth. So it's an enormous opportunity, and this credit gap is something that hopefully WeFi starts to help address. I think there's also challenges which, depending on where you go, but particularly in the developing world, there are no financial institutions. So if you look at sub-Saharan Africa, 70% of the adult population has no financial institutions from which to bank with, which is very limiting towards growth. So focusing on these areas, making sure that there's financial inclusion. This does disproportionately affect women who have even less access than their male counterparts, but it's a problem for men as well in many areas of the developing world.
I wanted to add that I think that while all of this is true, what I've mentioned, things are changing. One of the allies that we worked with was the Global Banking Alliance for Women, which was also initially funded by the IFC 15 years ago. When we looked at the landscape and tried to figure out who we could partner with 3 or 4 years ago, we identified IFC and GBA. And now I'm actually on the board of the Global Banking Alliance for Women. And one of the things that we've seen is that when we joined as Banco BH de León, there were only 2 other banks in the region, such as ourselves, that were joining at about that time, the GBA. We recently hosted in the Dominican Republic in June of this year what the GBA calls an all-stars event, where people come to share experience in terms of financing women at commercial banks, and we had over 30 participants from other Latin American banks. So I think just as happened in microfinance 20 or 30 years ago, we're hoping that this is a wave that will happen among commercial banks as well.
Okay. So another question for the whole panel. I've been really surprised and encouraged by some of the innovation, both technological but just other innovations. There's Harvard Business School developed a questionnaire that you can take on a iPad type computer. It takes about 45 minutes. and it's better at determining creditworthiness than the usual KYC methods. And so, in many countries where all the legal issues that Ivanka brought up, women don't have collateral in property in their name. So if we can use things like that, those innovations, we can start removing the barriers. But what do you guys think about the kinds of innovations in technology that might help? Yeah.
Well, I think technology is disrupting, in a positive way, all industries. And that is why domestically we're very focused on ensuring our next generation of American student is equipped with the skills to succeed in the modern economy. And that includes a strong computer science foundation. Just 2 weeks ago, the president signed a presidential memorandum directing the Department of Education to prioritize this, because technology is foundational to every industry, including banking, including finance, obviously, including entrepreneurship. So you look at certain areas of the world where it's actually dangerous to carry cash. So what do you do if you're a small business owner? Well, the use of mobile phones allows you to be able to accept payment from a customer without actually having cash and risking and having the danger of having large cash on hand. So this is just one of the many, many ways technology is impacting the ability of people to create business and create opportunity. And I think all of our countries and all of our nations have to be very focused on ensuring that our populations have strong education and foundation in STEM to help them really leverage that for the future. And I'm excited to see the work that WeFi will be doing on this. And I will just point out, because I see him right here, Eli Miller, Chief of Staff to Secretary Mnuchin, is here and has been a tremendous champion on behalf of the United States government for this effort. So we're very appreciative to have you here. And today is very special because just this week, WeFi actually became operational and put out its first requests for proposals from entrepreneurs. So thank you, Eli.
Great.
I think technology will be a massive transformational factor in not only how women start up their own businesses, but certainly how they access different markets. And the thing about technology is that it'll move in paces and in ways that none of us can actually anticipate. There has to be a very strong component of adaptability to always be able to develop the necessary skills to accept and to leverage this great technological advancement. When I look at certain countries around the world, certainly in our part of the world, that have cultural barriers, for example, that might hold people back, legal barriers that might hold people back, the use of technology and the digital platform and space ignores all of that in many ways. And people can begin to access these new markets and even meet with new mentors from around the world using that technological space. Because no matter how different we are, all of us need a mentor. We all occasionally get lonely. We need to continue to be determined, to persevere, to have grit. The ingredients for success are actually sort of the same, no matter where you go. And through my travels, I've noticed that again and again and again, that what binds us are actually very, very similar traits. And so through the use of this technology, you don't have to meet someone to be able to learn from that person or to be inspired by that person. You can be connected to them in such a strong virtual way, but no less human, no less effective or impactful. And I take heart that there is this platform and space, because that means that the possibilities are really endless and they really are what we want and what we can make of them.
I see technology facilitating access to finance for women on 3 counts in our institution. First, we have the channels through which we reach all of our clients, including women. And in that sense, the phone will be king in the future in terms of reaching our clients. And it already is to some extent. We have partnered with a company from Colombia called Carvajal Tecnología to develop a backbone of banking agents in our country. And right now we have twice as many agencies where customers can go instead of going to a bank branch, which is often a very big thing, especially for smaller entrepreneurs that might get intimidated in terms of going to a bank branch. They can go to a mom and pop shop and withdraw money from there, or deposit money there, transact otherwise through these sorts of agencies in a very simple manner. I see the second frontier in terms of facilitating finance, in terms of data analytics. This has come a long way. We can go a long way now from the typical credit bureau report, and many of those folks that we'd like to bank don't have a credit bureau report. We need to figure out how to use other kinds of data, and I think technology will help us in that sense. And in our case, as an institution, we've been partnering with third parties that have other sorts of data that we can use to help us make credit decisions. And then lastly, this is not just about finance, it's about transferring knowledge. And in terms of transferring knowledge, we had a seminar this week for SMEs in our country that our clients and those that are not our clients as well, to try to integrate them into our bank. And we had a couple of hundred folks at that particular training session, but we had about 3,000 persons connected while the session was going on in the Dominican Republic. And we got over 10,000 likes that very same day. So more than 3,000 people were looking at this during that day. So it's already transforming how we provide knowledge as well to our customers.
Well, we're out of time, unfortunately, but from April of 2017, when Ivanka first came to us to talk about this, we are now up and running. So the first tranche will be $150 million, and it's open to anyone. It's a regular World Bank fund. The governance of it will be our usual World Bank governance, but also the 15 donor countries will all be part of a group that decides on which projects will go forward. So we are open for business. The mentorship network will get up and going very quickly. Ivanka will be part of it, and our 3 entrepreneurs that you heard from today will be part of it. Please make your applications and support this as much as you possibly can. Can we have first the 3 entrepreneurs stand up? Thank you for being here. And I want to thank Ivanka, Your Excellency, Stephen. Thank you for being here. Great discussion, very substantial. And we'll make this happen. It's the first in history, $350 million of grants that will be leveraged into well over $1 billion in support for women entrepreneurs, both public and private. And let me also say that we're still open for more donations, because I think the need is tremendous, and we'll keep growing this in order to meet that deficit that Ivanka talked about. Thanks very much for coming, everybody.